So, rock stars, you know, as a healer, the connection between the mind and the body. But have you ever wondered if there was a lot more to it? If there was a way that you could increase the physical healing by understanding the mind's connection to the body? This episode is for you. We're talking to Dr. Brandy Cummings, a clinician who found a powerful pivot after realizing something was missing between the mind-body connection. We're going to get right into her journey, and it is mind-blowing, no pun intended, on how she was able to make impact in people's lives by understanding this connection. So we're going to dive into the missing link between the subconscious mind and the body, why so many patients keep looping despite doing everything right, and how emotional and energetic health may be the key to faster, deeper, and more lasting outcomes. So if you've ever thought there has to be more to the healing than this conversation is just for you. Enjoy the show. All right, Dr. B, please introduce yourself and tell us about what you do and why you're passionate about it.
Hey, well, it's good to be here. I am Dr. Brandy Cummings, and my doctorate degree is in clinical nutrition. My educational background is very much in nutrition. But after experiencing, kind of going through a really transformational experience that I'm sure we can get to later in the show, I have really pivoted my practice in a way that I feel gets my clients better, faster results, and really addressing a missing piece of emotional and energetic health that I wasn't taught in nutrition school, when I was learning functional medicine. It wasn't there beyond, things like breath work and journaling and meditation, but really clearing out the what's happening in the subconscious, I didn't learn about until I experienced it myself. And so now I'm really passionate about making sure that that piece is included so that people can have integration between their conscious and their subconscious mind and actually get the results that they want in their health, but really in all areas of life.
Yeah, I am so excited for today's episode, Dr. B, because at the end of the day, physical therapists who make up the largest part of my audience, they're business owners or leaders in that space. They are obviously very passionate about the physical healing of their patients. But the reason I think they become PTs or OTs or SLPs is because they're so passionate about the emotional impact that they make on their patients. And most PTs get into this field like me through a personal injury. And the therapist that they worked with didn't just help them regain their physical function, but there's this emotional healing. What we hear a lot in physical therapy practices, when we're doing it right, a patient will come in and go, I don't know if I'm getting more mental therapy or physical therapy.
Yeah.
Because they feel the emotional. So when we talk about emotional or energetic, what we're talking about are those elements besides the physical that are playing into someone's injuries. Can you speak a little bit into how that is and why that works? Because I think my audience already has a baseline like acceptance of that fact. This isn't going to be a cold audience of like, what? Emotional and physical. I think my audience is going to be like, yeah, I totally understand that, but you have an expertise in this. Can you talk into that emotional impact on the physical body?
Absolutely. So when it comes to, I think it's important we have a baseline understanding of what the mind is. And so if we think about the conscious mind is really 5%. And so this is our logic and our reasoning and our creativity. So if we think about our health and health goals, the conscious mind is our goal setter. We can consciously say, I don't want to be in pain anymore. I want to lose weight. I want to not be bloated, whatever it is. But then we have the subconscious mind, which is the 95% under the hood that's actually running the show. So this is your attitudes and your beliefs and your past experiences and programming that you picked up when you were a child and your responses to things. Any unresolved negative emotions are also there as well. And so the subconscious mind is really the part that is running the show. And so this is your goal getter. We can set a goal consciously based on whatever programming, limiting beliefs, unresolved negative emotions we have under the hood. That is our goal getter, and that's going to call in whatever results are in alignment with whatever programming we're running in the background, kind of like a software program. So if we have significant emotional events or traumas that have happened in our past life, or if we grew up with certain negative programming or limiting beliefs. Like a really easy example is like how many people grew up in a house where money didn't grow on trees, right? You had that limiting belief from the jump. Or like in health, I hear a lot, oh, all the women in my family have thyroid issues, right? That's a belief that they have. If that's what we believe, those are the results we're going to call in. And so whatever past experiences we have, either in our own lifetime or passed down through the DNA, through epigenetics, impacts that part of our mind, that 95% part of our mind. And so how this translates into the physical body, it impacts our fascia, it impacts our neurological connections and the wiring in our brain. And when we have, especially in the realm of negative emotions, specifically anger, hurt, sadness, fear, shame, and guilt, when we have those negative emotions that have not had resolution to them, the body is so brilliant and so smart, so much smarter than we will ever be, and will continue to bring you messages and opportunities to the surface in an effort to get resolution. Because hanging on to those negative emotions are not helpful to the body. So it will continue to bring opportunities. Sometimes that is in the form of symptomology. And it's really fascinating how we can see the correlations. I'll just give us a few that I think will resonate with your audience. So oftentimes a lot of people with chronic like neck and shoulder pain really feel like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. You know, like they have to do it all themselves. They have to carry the burden, or they don't trust other people. Like these are the people who don't like group work. That was me and my story. Just let me do it all myself. I can't trust you to do it. And then, you know, a lot of thyroid issues can correlate with people who feel like they've been silenced, unable to speak their truth, unable to use their voice. A lot of skin issues and eczema have a correlation to separation conflict or abandonment conflict. And so the body is sending us messages that there's something else under the hood in our subconscious mind. It's just up to us to listen to the message.
Okay, beautifully stated. What if someone's having heart palpitations? Does that correlate to anything?
Heart palpitations, so cardiovascular oftentimes can correlate with emotions of unresolved anger.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I've had those off and on. And I've had to be Mr. Nice Guy because of a self-limiting belief around things. So, guys, this is therapy for me in real time. But it's true because I not only have seen that in my own world, I've seen it in the lives of others. I have a very good friend who stutters really bad, and he has debilitating back pain, and he's done everything, including surgery. And I had another guest, Beth Winkler, who's a physical therapist, who's starting to actually bridge. It's not what you're doing, but it's in an overlapping space where it's called brain body, where they're recognizing that unhealed trauma plays into things. So I'm excited to learn more about your particular expertise in this, because I'm starting to, physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist. We know this. There's no quantifiable data for it. We have seen it when I've worked on someone's back and they start laughing hysterically because we've hit a release point emotionally for them.
Yeah.
So that connection is real for us, where I think I'm sure a lot of people in the traditional Western world will roll their eyes, but it's real. So in those cases where someone's coming in with those symptoms, like how do you work with those people to help them alleviate these symptoms?
Great question. So a big tip off to me, I mean, obviously I do a thorough intake and take a thorough history. And for me, this is actually an interesting in-house statistic that I discovered not too long ago. Me and my health coach were sitting down and looking at all of our past clients, and we realized that over 90% of them, we were not their first functional medicine practitioner that they came to see, which really kind of hit me over the head, because I was like, well, that doesn't seem like good statistics. I mean, I realize I'm only one practitioner. I would love for other practitioners to give me their data on this as well. But I was like, why are we missing the mark here? What is happening? And so the patterns that I see in people that really give me a clue to look into the emotional and energetic side of things, are they looping? Are they looping? Are they practitioner jumping? Have they tried all of the things where maybe they'll get results and then fall back? And I think that there's several reasons for that. There could be things under the hood in the subconscious, so to speak, but also thinking about everybody has a motivation strategy, and this is really fascinating. This is also a tidbit that people can walk away from and implement into their lives, like today after listening to this episode. But one of the first things is to bring incredible awareness to the language that you're using about yourself and about your life. So for example, if I say to somebody, thank you so much for scheduling this appointment. What are your biggest goals? What would you love to get out of our time together? And they say things like, oh, I don't want to have headaches. I don't want to be bloated. I don't want to, whatever it is. I don't want my hair to be falling out. So if you listen to that language, all of that language is what we call away from motivated. They're away from motivated. There's a pain point that they're trying to get away from. Well, the subconscious doesn't register the negative. So if I ask you, Will, do not think of a purple elephant, you're immediately thinking of a purple elephant. It's just
many purple elephants.
Right. The subconscious doesn't process the negative. And so if that's the language we're constantly sending to our subconscious, that we don't want headaches or to be bloated or to be in pain or whatever it is, we're calling more of that in. It's like your subconscious wants to make you happy. Your wish is my command. Here you go. And so they are away from motivated and they don't realize it. So they're trying to get away from this pain. So let's say it's weight loss, right? They have a weight, they don't like it, so they get motivated.
I don't want to be fat.
I don't want to be fat. New Year's is coming up. This is my resolution. So they start losing weight, right? Then they get over here. Well, now they're too far away from the pain. This is no longer very motivating anymore. And so what happens?
They cycle back.
They cycle back. Oh, shoot, now I'm right next to that pain again. I don't like that. That's my motivation strategy. Let me get away from that. And they start again. So they're in this loop. So just a quick tip to even just start bringing awareness to this is to start shifting your mindset to be toward motivated. Instead of getting whipped by the stick and running away from the stick, chase the carrot. What do you want instead? Which is literally what I tell my new clients. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And what would you like instead of that? And will sometimes just asking that question, people will break down because nobody's ever held space and allowed them to dream about what it is that they would actually love. And so, sometimes this question is so hard for people, like, somebody will be in pain. Thank you for sharing that with me. What would you like instead? Well, I want to wake up and not be in pain. Like, it's so hard for them to literally even contemplate what it is that they would love. Oh, I'd love to be on the floor playing with my grandkids. I'd love to be hiking. I'd love to be mobile. I'd love to be able to put my shoes on, whatever it is. What would you love? Where are we going? What's our outcome? Where are we headed? And if you just, like, my challenge to everybody who's listening is if you just challenge yourself for 3 days to bring awareness to your language. How many times are you away from motivated? And how can you switch that to start being toward motivated?
Well, I'm having all sorts of thoughts about my own world right now. I think it's a very powerful concept because I'm even familiar with some of this stuff, but even then the away from language, having it that spelled out, it's like, oh yeah, I've definitely think for me, I've been better about myself, but there's things with my family where I'm like, I don't want my son to feel this. It's like, no, I want my son to be independent, happy, thriving. Like, why can't that language is such a big deal. And it's, as people are listening to this, I think they're going to help identify these things in their patients and their employees.
Yes.
When you're working with employees, one of my retention strategies I've always used is to work with them. And we call it a vision meeting where once a year we go out to lunch unstructured and just say, what do you want?
Yeah.
Literally, I've got this documented, Brandy, and it's so funny because it follows what you just said, because what I tell my clients is when you have an employee dreaming with you and they can see what they want down the road and you can offer suggestions. Most people don't even know what they want. So you just sit there and go, well, you could become a specialist. You could have your own practice one day. You could have, a yacht. Like, what do you want? You want to travel the world? Like, what do you want? And then you start coming up with things. They attach the positive emotion to you as a coach. And then where did that lead them? Back into your company, because no one's even, they don't even know what they want. So if they don't know, then they default to money or certain little perks that don't even matter versus, well, here I'm seen and heard. Here I'm growing into a vision. And it sounds like it's the same parallel with patients, where patients come in and like, I just don't want to hurt anymore. It's like, well, what do you want? I'm thinking a lot about my friend that stutters, who's in severe pain. He just had this really severe surgery, and of course he's not any better. And it's been such a tragic thing to watch on the sidelines. I know there's some of this going on with this individual. And so it sounds like this is a whole side of medicine that, I mean, as a physical therapist, Brandy, sorry, Dr. B, she and I are friends. I had this whole world where I treat, and everyone who's treating has heard this before, or seen this, where you have a patient come in who's been in pain for 30 years and they're in such excruciating pain and none of it even makes sense. You're like, they are tight and they're encumbered and all these things, but they react emotionally to some of the physical movements with such excruciation. It doesn't correlate. It's like, oh, and so they just put them on medications and they send them to therapy. And honestly, our stretches and exercises aren't going to help those people. And we kind of know that, don't we?
Right.
So you start by helping transition them into this mindset of language and helping them release some of this creative damning language. And then, like, when you work with people, how long do you see them typically? Kind of give me more of a general overview. How long are you seeing these people? What are some of the results you've had?
Yeah, great question. So I had your story about pain made me think of a particular person that I worked with, and she had really severe neck pain. So bad that I was sitting with her and she was like, "Oh, the pain is so bad. I'm feeling really nauseous. I don't know. I might need to go lay down." Like, she really couldn't even like turn her neck, and she was really wincing, and it was so painful and it was so hard. And I'm walking through this process of helping her to really identify the emotions that she's feeling. Accompanied with that, it's called the pain paradigm, and it's a process that I walk people through, which that really links the physical pain to the emotions that in the beginning they're not aware of. They're unconscious that there's a connection here. But I'm walking her through this, and we're doing this process, and she had 4 children who were all they all had severe autism, and it was her perspective that this was caused by negligence in the medical system. And so she had a lot of anger and bitterness and resentment about that. And she spent the last 2 decades of her life recovering all 4 kids, getting them from a place where they were completely nonverbal to a place where they're completely functioning and healed and thriving now. But it took so much effort in her, and she had so much bitterness and anger because she felt like this was a result of bad decisions made by the people that were on her medical team that she was supposed to be able to trust. And so, these are decades old wounds that she has and these unresolved emotions. So we finally get to the bottom of it. We were going through this process, and probably took 30 minutes, maybe 40, and her pain was really bad. She labeled it an 8, and at the end her pain popped. It went to the 0, and the very next day I jumped off a 20-foot cliff with her into the water.
Come on.
She
That
couldn't
is so
even
cool.
sit. She literally was like, "I can't do this. I have to lay down. I can't even function." And I'm just like, her pain has not come back. This was 5 months ago.
These stories that I'm hearing, and having lived in this space now as a patient, because I had a child who needed different types of emotional healing, and there wasn't physical symptoms present. It was other stuff. And so we were going through these different treatments, and like, there's a whole bunch that are emerging now. What I'm seeing is the development of a missing critical part of healthcare that is starting to form around what you're doing. We were talking before we hit record, how this is going to be as common in 100 years, that people are going to get these types of treatments just like they get a shot, except that if the world is doing this in 50 years, in 100 years, it's going to be as close to heaven on earth as there can be, because if everyone's healed or knows how to heal and they're helping each other, we'd only be doing singular outpoint cases when something traumatic happens, like an accident, versus like compounded familial trauma that happens generation to generation because hurt people hurt people. So by doing this, we can cause healing and heal people heal people. It's an exciting and frustrating time for me because we're just early enough stages to where I know it's real. I've seen it in my own world. I've seen it in now, just not just with your patients, but other people who are doing similar energy and emotional work, that it's actually fixing some of these physical symptoms, but it's not far enough along yet to where it's more standardized. So you
Right.
are a pioneer, but there's starting to emerge more and more pioneers around this. So when you told me, I said, hey, what's the main thing you'd want to do on this podcast? Your main thing was, I want to get the word out to this stuff.
Yeah.
Why is that?
The more practitioners and health professionals that we have that have these tools, the faster we're going to be able to help our patients and clients heal. And that is why we're all in this industry. That's why we all got into this. And if people are not getting results, if they're looping, if they're practitioner jumping, if they're trying all the things, if they're like in a functional medicine practice, which is my arena, so that's what I'm most familiar with. But for example, if somebody is doing the mold test and the Lyme test and doing the detoxes and doing the gut health protocols and taking all the supplements and then going on this 10-month protocol of different supplements and lifestyle recommendations, and they're wearing the blue light blockers and they're being mindful of their light and they're moving their body and they've done every diet that there is and they're still not getting results, we're missing something. And the practitioners are not equipped with the tools to know what they're missing. And so what do? Well, okay, let's try to pivot. What else could we do? Maybe we should run a brain test. Maybe we should, try this supplement or this protocol. And all of that stuff is amazing and life-changing and incredible, and I'm so grateful that we have it. And it's like if you're running against the wind with a parachute on your back.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But if you could just reach down and unclick the parachute, you're off. And then everything gets easier and faster and better. And that's what this work does. And that was my experience when I went through this process myself. I
wondered if you were going to bring it up. I wondered if you were going to bring it up. It was so personal, I didn't know. Please bring it up, because I think, like,
Can
for
we
me,
get a little vulnerable here?
Absolutely. When I talk to physical therapists and I tell them about how I started by falling off a mountain and breaking 21 bones, it sets the stage for authenticity, because so let's hear about where you came from on this. If you're willing to share, I'd love for the audience to hear it.
Yeah. So I opened my functional medicine practice in 2016, right? And I had these, what I thought were personality traits, where I was more controlling, more rigid. I said, "Oh, I'm just very type A. I'm very OCD." These are the stories I would tell myself about my personality traits. Like, I was the type of person that didn't like group work, as I mentioned. I like math. I like spreadsheets. I like structure. If you're not early, you're late. Just very rigid and trying to control things. And I was in business, I was looping. I would get results and then I wouldn't. I would get results and then I wouldn't. And I was also, in the past couple of years, I was really losing a lot of traction in my physical health. And I didn't have a bad diet. I was eating all of the things. I had done all of the detoxes. I did have an experience about a decade ago with some pretty severe mold exposure. I went through all of that. But I was like, something is really amiss. And then I'm learning more about this work and these different pillars of health. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like the clouds parted, and all of a sudden I had so much clarity, because for me, when I was a child, starting at the age of 5 years old, I was sexually abused by my grandfather. And what I didn't realize is that from that experience, I had this very strong protector part that was born. That's where all those, what I thought were personality traits
The
came from.
rigidness.
Trying to keep me safe, trying to create some sort of structure, which impacted all areas of my life, but it also impacted my relationships and how physically intimate I was able to get with somebody was negatively correlated with how emotionally attached I was to them, which
Isn't
causes a
that
lot of problems.
interesting? Yeah, and I can see that when it's interesting when you begin with the end in mind. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable to share that truth for us, because when you're using it from a learning perspective, you go, yeah, I could see how that would be created in that way and how it wouldn't serve. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't see that connection as the person living through it, how hard that must be.
Right. Exactly. And it was also, I had this mentality of like, I just got to work harder, faster, better, stronger, longer. I just got to keep grinding. Surely something's going to pop at some point. And I didn't realize that all of the results really that I was experiencing in my life could be traced back to this really significant emotional event. And
Sure.
so I started learning this work and I started implementing these tools. And then I went through a very transformational experience for myself where, the toolbox is huge, but it was a lot of neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, parts integration, inner child healing, past life regression. And I was able to break free. Like, you have kids, Will, so I know you've seen the movie Aladdin. And at the end of Aladdin, when Aladdin sets the genie free and like his golden
Yeah.
cuffs are coming off of his wrists, right?
Yeah.
That's what I felt like. I was just like, I felt like I could take a breath for the first time in my life. And I was like, oh
Wow.
my gosh, like it was just completely lifted. Because here's the thing about your subconscious mind, it has a blueprint for exactly where you are now, and it has a blueprint of perfect health and healing. It's already inside of you. There's nothing you have to go get from your external environment. It's already inside of you. We have to reach down and unclick that parachute. And so after I went through this experience, and this is wild. So, first of all, that experience was a 2-day experience. So fast,
It
right?
doesn't take a lot of time.
It doesn't
That's
take a
the
lot of
crazy.
time. It doesn't have to take decades. It doesn't have to take decades. My goodness, it doesn't have to take decades. And so, talk about a mind body connection. Immediately afterwards, like the next day, all of a sudden, my body is just purging. I will spare you some of the details, but every possible bodily fluid that there is, I was purging. I was hacking up black mucus. We went hiking the next day. I was puking all
Black
the way up the
mucus.
mountain. Yeah, black mucus, which I think was like
Amazing.
residual mold, but my body was just like
Was
getting rid of
able to
it.
expel it because there's nothing emotionally to connect to it. So it was able to just expel it completely. That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Every bodily fluid. My next period was crazy. Like every bodily fluid I was purging. So I went through
Whoa.
that period of just my body was like, oh,
I appreciate the heads up for those of us who are going to go through this process of like what's going on, because there is a physiological release and your body only has so many releases. It's the
right.
thing.
Oh, 100%. So then within the next 3 months after that, my body released 40 pounds of emotional inflammation that I was hanging on to.
Oh my gosh, you weren't trying to
No,
lose weight.
no peptides, like I wasn't using anything. And I was like, I knew it. I knew something was up. I was doing all the right things, but my body was hanging on to all of this emotional inflammation, and then it just released all of it, and all areas of my life changed from that experience. And so once I went through that, it's kind of like, once you see something, you can't unsee it. And I was like, this is such a valuable missing piece that so many practitioners of all kinds are missing. And so, like you said a little bit ago, my biggest goal for this conversation and this podcast is to bring awareness to that. And if we're not addressing the emotional and energetic piece in our patients and clients, but also in ourself, because I felt like
Yes.
I was not acting in my highest and best. I was not being integrous when I was hanging on to all of this stuff, but posturing as if I had it all figured out and trying to pass that along to my clients. When you clear your own cup and do this emotional and energetic work, your external environment has no choice but to recalibrate to be in alignment with this new frequency and vibration, and it will positively impact your life, your patient's life, or your client's life. And then the ripple from all the people that are quantumly entangled in their lives, and also future generations. And that's how we actually turn this ship around, I feel.
Wow. The ship called existence, the ship called people going through life and wanting to make impact. I mean, so can you share some of the way that your external environment has aligned with your new frequency? Is there what has happened since that work that you could show as like point to as like, yeah, this is different now because of that?
Yeah. So, a really fun concept that I liked to share with people is something called perception is projection, meaning that the people and the experiences that come into our life and our circle of awareness is a mirror. It is a projection of us. And so, let's say we have a bunch of patients right now or clients where they're just like, oh my gosh, they're like, they're the worst. They're not compliant. They're not doing what I say. Like, they're complaining, they're abusing, they're trying to contact me too much. Like, we've all experienced that, right? Where we've had those clients or patients where they're just like
Yeah,
draining us. Okay,
totally.
so you applying this concept of perception as projection, instead of getting triggered by them, how about we ask ourselves, how are they a projection of me? What are they here to teach me? What can I learn? Where in my life am I not being compliant? Where in my life am I maybe blurring a boundary of somebody else's time boundary? Where in my life am I not following through with what I said I was going to do? When we can get curious about our own behavior and take radical responsibility for the results in our life, all of a sudden, those types of patients will fall away as if like magic. And by the way, the reverse is true. Somebody comes into your life that you're just obsessed with and can't get enough with. You love them, you love their energy, you want to be around them at all times. That's also because that is in you. Every person and every opportunity that comes into your life is a projection and a mirror of you. And so for me, it's been fascinating how the type of clients I'm calling in have changed. The relationships with certain family members have fallen away or resolved themselves. The type of friends, the caliber of human that I'm calling into my life to like have this human experience with is so rich and great. I'm just in awe and just so unbelievably grateful for it. So that's been a really interesting thing that I've noticed as well. I've noticed shifts in my business, of course, shifts in my physical health, as I've mentioned, shifts in my relationships. I've actually been able to go back to many of my past relationships where things did not end well because of that inverse relationship between
Yeah.
emotional and intimate connection. And I've been able to share my story and give context and information that I
Really?
didn't have back then. And that has been one of the most healing experiences I've ever been through because every person has been so loving and willing to listen and forgiving and caring. And the fact that, like, these people were able to see all of the good parts of me at a time in my life where I wasn't able to see them myself.
Wow.
And so it's just, I think about it like this. If you think about your life, and then think about your ideal life. If you had a magic wand and could curate anything that you wanted, and then take that ideal life, and then that would be a 10 out of 10, right? And then ask yourself, what if that was just a 2 out of 10? How much better could it get? And that's what happens when we start clearing our cup and moving this energy that was stagnant for me for 31 years of my life. And then
Wow.
all of a sudden now I'm unlocking all of this energy flow through my body. Results are incredible.
I love how you went into that, Brand. Listen, Dr. B, it's so powerful that you have modeled it yourself. I think that's what's so special because we could, this isn't a call to send patients to you. This is a call of awareness of what's possible for all of us. And I love the way that these things have shown up for you. And I've just been mesmerized as you're talking because I'm forgetting I'm on a podcast. I'm sitting there literally thinking about there's two relationships in my world that are incredibly frustrating. And I'm just thinking about like, oh, maybe I should be curious to see what I'm supposed to learn. How am I like that? And then, there's some great self-affirmation of these people that I get to, most people, I'm very grateful to say the vast majority of the people around me are so wonderful and so inspiring. And it's just like, oh, well, maybe I'm vibrating at a good frequency these days, cause like it's never been like this as it is now for me, but it's come from deep mental and emotional work. I will say that although I haven't done the process exactly, I've been chasing processes because there's someone very near and dear to me who's been struggling emotionally for years. And so everything I do hasn't been because I wanted help. It was because I wanted to test the waters before he would test the waters.
Sure.
And so I did EMDR therapy. Hypnosis, by the way, for those of you who've never heard this before, get used to it. Like if you've never heard of healing hypnosis, these types of techniques that Dr. B was mentioning, and that was just one of many for her. There is so much more data that's coming out around how we can actually rewire these traumatic events that have created programming in our CPU. Like there's these really cool things that I have personally experienced that have transformed my physical health as a result of this. And I just think it's one of those that we have to keep an open mind. We have to realize that connection is real. There's enough scientific evidence to prove that how we think or the mindset we're in literally manifests different physiological states, all the way to more extreme cases that have less data, but more subjective personal experiences that are many of when people do shift their mindsets and they do have these clearing of the cups, like you mentioned, the literal universe starts shifting around them. Their experience of life changes in a way that feels effortless, in a way that feels for you, not against you. Like when the resistance in our lives that we experience is us in not clearing those elements internally. But what's so hard about it is that's not conscious. It's all these subconscious things that we build around us. There's a really interesting video I have that I show people from time to time of Tony Robbins helping somebody in seconds get rid of a stutter that they've had for decades.
Yeah.
Have you seen that video?
Yeah, I have.
It's pretty powerful. He does a regressive child healing thing where he's like, okay, when did you start stuttering? 3 years old. What was the moment what's the last thing you remember before you started stuttering? And of course it was this traumatic thing. And the stutter was built because the kid was watching Rocky and Bullwinkle, and Bullwinkle stutters. And when he does, Rocky shows up for help. So he made that connection as a smart, 3-year-old that he was developing that to protect himself. And then when he realized that and was able to go back and do some other things, like literally within minutes, it's all on video, he stopped stuttering. And the next thing you see is a video of him on stage talking to thousands of people without a stutter. There's these things that show up physiologically that are completely baked and based in these emotional elements. And so how do people learn more? Brandy, like what do people do from this point? If whoever's listening at this point is clearly dialed in on this.
Yeah.
Great. I'm aware of it now. What next?
Yeah. Well, start getting curious. Start getting really curious and have an open mind. And so that's the first part. And I want to touch on something that you said about hypnosis, because I think this is a really important point that I want to drive home, because it is such an extremely powerful tool, but the misconceptions are abundant.
And there's a lot of practitioners popping up around it that I'm like, how do I know which ones? You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of it's becoming so popular.
Right. So first of all, hypnosis is just a state of trance. So it doesn't mean that anybody's controlling you or doing anything against your will. Nobody's going to make you do something that you don't want to do. It's just a state of trance. If you've ever meditated, if you've ever been in a deep state of prayer, if you've ever driven home and you pulled into your driveway and all of a sudden you were like, oh, that was weird, I kind of zoned out for a minute. That's hypnosis. It's just a state of trance. And why it's so beneficial is because, like I said, we had the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. I know that those people that aren't watching us can't see me do this, but in between the two, there's like an analytical wedge. That's what this is called. The analytical wedge is there to keep us safe so that things don't go into our subconscious mind that we don't want to. But this is why, like, if like people who have done affirmations and feel like, oh, that didn't work for me. Because if you're telling yourself like, oh, I'm a money magnet, I'm abundant, I'm healthy, or whatever it is, if you have a strong, thick analytical wedge there, it's kind of like your brain is like, no, you're not. What are you talking about? No. So, in hypnosis, which is just a state of trance, we can remove the analytical wedge so that we have integration of the conscious and the subconscious so that both are on board and on the same plane and moving towards the same goal. So that's all hypnosis is. People like go to the state fair and see the hypnosis shows, and then they have this like.
It's not the same thing. It's not even real. You know, it's so funny because the therapist that I went to for my hypnosis before I sent my family member, it was crazy the way that like things were just so immediate, and there were story. She told me story after story after story. Her calendar was booked out. I mean, we're talking about people who've been to traditional therapy for years, going in 3 sessions and completely like never having any more issues.
Right.
And some of them are physiological. This is, in my opinion, 100% as real as a passive range of motion stretches to the knee.
Right.
It's just that we are just starting to really understand it at a deeper level, and the studies need to come. But again, 100 years from now, they're going to look back and go, those poor people who didn't know this. Like the way we look back in the dark ages and go, they weren't even washing their hands before surgeries. Like, whoa.
Right.
That's literally how they're going to view us. And hopefully thank us, because people like you who are pioneering this are making such a large impact globally.
Yeah. So the first step is, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was cutting right back to you. So the first step was keep an open mind. That's what I said.
Keep an open mind and get curious, especially if you like think of the patients in your mind where you're like, I kind of had a wall with them. You know, I threw everything I had at it. We all have those people. Call them up, like get curious. And then next, I really recommend working with somebody to do this work for yourself. Like, so that you are in integrity, so that you can clear your own cup, so that you are coming from a place where you're not running against the wind with a parachute on your back. And so whether that's me or whether that's somebody else, I really recommend going through this process yourself and seeing all the results and what can happen in the shifts in your own life first, and then continuing to share these modalities and this pillar of health with your patients and clients, whether that means referring them to people who are trained in this like myself or many others, or going and learning the tools yourself. That is how the ripple that we need is going to happen.
I love it. I'm thinking about having you speak to my buddy who's got the stutter issue with all the pain and those kinds of things. How would I begin that conversation?
I would love to. Well, you can just text me, but
yeah. Yeah. I mean, how do I have that conversation with him about you? Like, I'm not worried about how to get a hold of you, because like you're going to send me your information, or whatever, how people can get a hold of you professionally. Yeah. But how do I have that discussion with him? He's probably your regular guy who knows nothing about this, who's going to possibly hear this from a place of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Like, what would I say to him?
So what I really like for people like that, what do you want? What do you want? You want to not stutter? Okay, that's a way for motivated. What do you want instead of stuttering? And get curious, like ask questions, get clear on what it is that he really wants. And then, okay, once you have that, what are you going to be able to see, hear, and feel once you have that? What will that allow you to be, do, and have once you have that? And how good is that going to feel once you achieve that outcome? and allowing them to really step into the possibility, because so many people put limitations on the capabilities of their own life and just the magic that this vessel that they're using to have this human experience can actually accomplish. So allowing him to step into the possibility of what is possible, I think, is so helpful. And then having a conversation around, like, okay, what have you tried so far? Great. We haven't got the results that they want. Just because you haven't found answers doesn't mean that there are not answers. Would you be open to trying something different? Are you willing to take radical responsibility for the results in your life and do whatever it takes and lean into the reality that anything is possible for you? And I think that having those types of conversations where they're really sitting into what that life would look like is really so much more powerful than, like, hey, let me tell you about hypnosis and parts integration.
I like that idea. I like the idea of framing it from, like, hey, what do you want? Would you be willing to hear something that is probably something you're not used to that absolutely has made a difference for people who want the same things you do? I think that's the next step for me. And I'll just say there's this element of emotional components that are actually being correlated to physical. And we have some experts that could talk to you and explain to you what this looked like. Would you be interested in learning more about it? I think that's how I'll approach it.
Exactly.
And I think it's exciting because, people who are listening, they can also, I'll have your information in the notes, but can you just say how do people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about some patients or even themselves?
So currently I'm right in the middle of a rebrand, but currently my Instagram handle is resilientmotherhood.health, and that's also my website.
Got it. So that's going to shift. So for now, resilientmotherhood.health. Okay, fantastic. Brandy, thank you so much for being, and when you rebrand, just send me the stuff and I'll put it in the notes as well.
Perfect.
But it has been a joy to be with you. I don't know what I was excited to talk to you just because I think so much of you, but this has completely transformed elements of my life. So thank you for being on the show. It means a lot to me that you do this for us.
Well, it was my pleasure. I love connecting with you.
All right, rock stars, thank you for tuning in. As always, this is Will Humphreys reminding you to lead with love, live on purpose, and remember to never give up. Until next time.